about refrigerator Perry and just how hard he hit. And my mama told me homecoming games are the best. On the banks of those late fall, late cartwheel sunsets, I wanted to be just like Jeff Davis when I grew up, tackling Seminoles and Bulldogs, playing football in the mud. So everybody sing Tiger Rag at the top of your lungs, and we'll party like it's 1981. Make those Death Valley lights shine brighter. And for good luck, we got Howard's Rock to beat the hell out of them old Gamecocks. It's a damn good day to be a Clemson Tiger. I feel really sorry for our sisters to the south, 'cause they come up here every other year and get punched in the mouth. Oh, and every home Saturday, it gives us the chills to watch those boys in orange run together down that hill. So everybody sing Tiger Rag at the top of your lungs, and we'll party like it's 1981. Make those Death Valley lights shine brighter. And for good luck, we got Howard's Rock to beat the hell out of them old Gamecocks. It's a damn good day to be a Clemson Tiger. Oh, somewhere up in heaven, Gaines Adams makes us sad. And that old Banks McFadden is the best damn running back. So everybody sing Tiger Rag at the top of your lungs, and we'll party like it's 1981. Make those Death Valley lights shine brighter. And for good luck, we got Howard's Rock to beat the hell out of them old Gamecocks. It's a damn good day to be a Clemson Tiger. It's a damn good day to be a Clemson Tiger. Everybody, damn good day to be a Clemson Tiger. Oh yeah.
Good afternoon, everybody. Pigskin Pete here. Happy Tuesday to everybody. I hope everybody had a great weekend and a great Monday, even though Mondays suck. I know I did. Really happy to be back with you guys today. A lot to talk about. A lot to talk about in college football. A lot to talk about in the NFL. A lot's going on. And before I get into it, let me see who is in the chat and say hello to everybody. Good afternoon, Boonk Gang. Lee Smith, Miranda Dansby, good afternoon. 81 Clemson Tigers 16. The Sports Fury, don't know if it's Josh or Sean, but what's up to either one of you guys? Jimmy C says, roll Tide, roll. Billy Dawson, my man. Clemson fan says, good morning, good afternoon, sir. I'm sure if you're here, you're amazing and fantastic. Otherwise, you would not be here. Prince 6'1". Prince 6'1" does the weeds with the eyes in the middle of it, and it looks like Buckeyes to me. I don't like that, Prince. Let's see here. College Football Maniac, my favorite Gamecock fan, and there's a very, very short list. Nick Bro, good afternoon, sir. Uncle Lou says, good morning. Is that the real Uncle Lou? Because I got trolled by a fake Uncle Lou the last time I was on here. So I'm assuming it's the real Uncle Lou, but I don't know. Because we had to kick somebody out last week for pretending to be you, Uncle Lou. I don't know if you know that. So anyways, Blake Ellis, good afternoon. Boonk Gang says, can you mod me, Pete? I'll talk to you about that later, Boonk Gang. Boonk Gang, I keep forgetting to remod you, but at this point, I have so many mods. I've had a lot of people asking me to mod them, and I don't have any need for more mods right now. Nothing against you, sir. Nothing personal. It is Uncle Lou, says College Football Maniac. Will the real Uncle Lou please stand up? All right, so first, I want to make an announcement. I do this every week. I announce which game I will be doing my live play-by-play and reaction for. So my number one game that I wanted to do so badly was Texas A&M and Alabama. I think it's the most exciting game of the week. However, unfortunately, they play it at the exact same time that Clemson and Georgia Tech play. And I love you guys, but there's no way I'm missing the Clemson-Georgia Tech game to do a stream for another game. So I looked through the schedule and tried to find – I'm not doing a noon game either. It's just too early. So I looked for one of the nighttime games to do, and really the best nighttime game that I could find is at 8 o'clock, and it's Stanford and Oregon. And that's on at 8 p.m. That's where game day is this week also. And really, to be honest with you, I wouldn't mind doing a Pac-12 game. There's probably not going to be very many Pac-12 games that I will be streaming for this year, rather. So it makes sense. And also, I actually am kind of excited to see Oregon play. I've seen bits and pieces of some of their games. That Justin Herbert quarterback looks like he's the real deal, and Oregon looks like they're a lot better than people thought they were going to be, or at least better than I thought they were going to be. And at this point, Willie Taggart's probably wishing he stayed there, right? He was better at Oregon last year than he is at Florida. Florida State's a complete dumpster fire. We'll get into that in a minute. But anyway, so that's what I'm going to do. And unless anybody on here has another suggestion of a game, that's the one I'm planning on doing. 8 p.m. Uncle Lou says, Pete, can you do me a favor? I don't know. It depends on what you're asking me. Go ahead and shoot, sir. That's definitely the real Uncle Lou. He says to let Georgia Tech win because he needs Paul Johnson to keep his job. I'm sorry, sir. I cannot grant you that wish. But I will tell you this much. If Paul Johnson and the Georgia Tech Fighting Yellow Jackets beat Clemson this week, then I'll be stumping for Dabo Swinney to lose his job. So you'll at least get one out of there that you don't want. I'm just kidding. I would never want Dabo to leave. But listen, Georgia Tech's one of the worst teams in football. Clemson has no business. In fact, if you watch my Vegas lock picks video from yesterday, I picked Clemson to cover. They're favored by 16, I think. And I think Clemson's going to blow them off the map. Good afternoon, Mark Dudley, our resident Michigan fan. Mark Dudley still sticks around no matter how much I trash Michigan. Gotta love that guy. Blake Ellis says, sick of Clemson's fans bickering. They seem to forget 2 years ago with the great Deshaun Watson at quarterback. Clemson barely got a win at home against Troy and NC State at home and losing to Pitt. Blake Ellis, yeah, listen, that's what you don't understand. If you had a YouTube channel and you're a Clemson fan like me, I get so much flack from Clemson fans. It's ridiculous. I mean, I get less pushback from Gamecock fans, and I have probably 30 videos on YouTube where I do nothing but trash and bash and embarrass Gamecock fans. It is what it is. And I agree with you. Everyone thinks the sky's falling. Listen, Clemson right now, are they dominating everybody they play the way they should? I mean, we should have beat who we played last week, Georgia Southern. We should have beat them 80-0, right? We won 37-7. But we had 2 turnovers and a missed field goal in the first half, right? I mean, so the game could have easily been 50-0, but that's besides the point. I touched on this yesterday. Clemson has not found their identity on offense right now, and really, what's going on, I think, in my crazy mind, as a fan, is that Dabo in these first 3 games, even the Texas A&M game, he didn't feel like they were going to lose that game. He's playing everybody under the sun, and not just in trash time. I'm not talking about once they're up 4 touchdowns, putting in the second and third string players. He's doing this in throughout the entire game. We're playing 3 quarterbacks, 5 running backs, every single true freshman on the roster, even as early as the second quarter when we're only up by a touchdown. And I don't know what he's doing. I think it's just sort of, in his mind, some sort of audition for the rest of the year. He feels like if we can get through these first 3 or 4 games, we can solidify our starting roster and then ride them into the playoffs. Now, as far as the quarterback situation goes, I've completely changed my tune at this point. I've seen 3 games. I know where I stand on the quarterback situation. Listen, Trevor Lawrence needs to be the starter, and he needs to play the entire games from here on out. And the reason I say that, can we win with Kelly Bryant with the way our schedule lays out? Kelly Bryant can start every game from here out, and we should win by 2 touchdowns in every single game that we're playing in with ease. That's not the point. What's our goal this year if you're a Clemson fan? My goal is not just to win the ACC. Anything less than doing that would be a complete and utter embarrassment and disappointment, wouldn't it? Our goal this year is to make it not only to the playoffs, but to the national championship game and have a good chance to win it. We've got the team to do it. This is the best Clemson team that's ever been on the field at one time in my life. Yes, we had Deshaun Watson for 3 years, but the weapons around Deshaun Watson in totality, especially on the defensive side of the ball, were not the way they are this year. So it's sort of, to me, you need to put Trevor in there and let him get comfortable, get as much snaps and experience under his belt and live game time before the playoffs. All right, don't expect everybody to be Alabama and we get down by 3 touchdowns in the playoff game, and we're going to throw Trevor Lawrence in there. He's going to come in there with his long blonde shiny hair and save the day like Sir Lancelot. That's not going to happen. He needs to be playing full time right now. Kelly Bryant would be a great. He might be the best backup quarterback in the entire country, most experienced. And I'm sorry if that hurts anybody's feelings. If you're a Clemson fan and you love Kelly Bryant because he's a senior and blah, 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 blah. I love him too, but I love winning more. Good afternoon, Sooner Ace. How you doing, sir? NBA Nate. What did... Uncle Lou's arguing with Boont Gang about... so apparently Boont Gang must have done something that pissed off Uncle Lou. Uncle Lou... I'm not going to even get into that, as a matter of fact. Yeah, I'll let you guys argue about it. But if somebody had done to me what Uncle Lou says you did to him, believe me, I would not be too happy about it. I can promise you that much. That's a negative on the best backup, says Brian Fennell. Who's the best backup then? Jalen Hurts? I guess you could, if you're a Georgia fan, you may say Justin Fields is. Well, Justin Fields may be the best quarterback in the history of all of America, but he's still a true freshman. Kelly Bryant has played and won big games. Justin Fields hasn't. So we're splitting hairs at that point. Do you think Ohio State will make to the national championship? No, I don't. I don't think Ohio State. I think Ohio State's good enough to go to the playoff. As a matter of fact, I think Ohio State will go to the playoff. Because let's face it, the Big Ten is a big, massive disappointment. And for any Big Ten fans on here who are going to come at me and say, "Oh, you just hate the Big Ten. You just hate the Big Ten," go back all through preseason and watch my prediction videos. And I gave the Big Ten East all of the credit in the world. I said it. I said over and over and over and over again, till I was blue in the face, that the Big Ten East was, in my mind, the deepest and toughest conference division in a conference to navigate through this year. And that was with me even thinking that Michigan was vastly overrated. I still thought Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan State were 3 elite teams. And, of course, Wisconsin in the West. Well, now we've just seen basically everybody out of the Big Ten East and Wisconsin, other than Ohio State, they've all lost non-conference games to inferior teams. So, listen, the best division in football right now, and it's not even close, is the SEC West. Somebody argue with me and tell me I'm wrong. If you're going to argue with me on that, you better come up with some really cold, hard facts to back up your case. Big Ten is a dumpster fire right now, says somebody. Good afternoon, Dondre Crawford. I'm sure if you're here, you're amazing and fantastic. Otherwise, you would not be here. He says the Big Ten is whack. Everybody's coming down on the Big Ten, which is easy to do. I mean, I'm no fan of the Big Ten. I mean, they've got I mean, people say that the SEC has the most annoying fans. No, I'm sorry, they don't. The Big Ten does. Not even close. Especially Ohio State fans. But I mean, at least Ohio State has a reason to beat their chest and brag. I mean, they've actually, won national titles and been at the top of the, in the top 5 every year for the past decade. Michigan hasn't been there since all of college football, when all those wins, majority of them, came before 1950. UGA has the same problem Clemson does. Crappy play calling, and they won't throw down the field. Yeah, I'll repeat myself. What needs to happen if you're Dabo Sweeney and Tony Elliott and those guys, the offensive coordinators, unleash the beast. Let Trevor Lawrence do what Trevor Lawrence has been doing since he's been in 7th grade. And that's just light the scoreboard up with his arm. We've got the receivers to do it. We've got the running backs to support it. For the first time in God knows how long, we have a stable full of running backs that could start for anybody in America. I mean, we should be running the ball 50% of the time, throwing the ball 50% of the time, and at least 25% of those 50% of the passing should be down the field. Period. Stop beating around the bush here. I don't like this crap. They love putting Kelly Bryant in there, don't they? And running those 10 to 12 quarterback design runs a game. Well, that was great back when we didn't have running backs to run the ball. I mean, what are they doing? You change the play calling up based on the personnel you have. Kelly Bryant is not a better runner of the football than Travis Etienne, Feaster, even the new guy. I can't even think of his name right now because I'm so pissed off. Adam Choice. Listen, hand the ball off to them. Let them run the ball. Don't run Kelly Bryant till you get him slammed in his head in the ground like he did at Syracuse, and he's a vegetable by the time he's 25 years old. I'm so pissed off with Clemson's play calling and just overall offensive philosophy right now, if you can't tell. It needs to change, or we're not going to win shit this year. I promise. Yeah, Lynn J. Dixon. Thank you, Clemson fan. That's the other one. This guy thinks he's a coach. Just be happy you're 3-0. I don't know who you're talking to. I don't think I'm a coach. If you're talking to me, Lou. Etienne averaged 7 yards a rush last year. He's averaging over that this year too. Good afternoon, Ryan Stanfield. He says Alabama's offense is something serious. Yes, it is. It's Alabama's offense looks like Oklahoma's did last year with Baker Mayfield. And what's his name? The guy that got hurt, Anderson. Not a real fan. Support your team and be happy. I'm definitely not a real fan. For anybody who's just checking in, I just became a fan. What year did Clemson start getting good? I don't know what year it was. That's when I became a fan. Whenever they started getting good. Before that, I pulled for Duke mostly. I was a basketball fan before that. Yeah, Feaster was injured before the season, and that's why they didn't use him a lot. Yeah, early in the season, they started unleashing him a little bit last year. I'll tell you one thing: that Lynn J. Dixon guy is he's the real deal too, isn't he? I mean, he really should be the second back behind Etienne. I know he came in late in the training camp. And they sort of acquired him late. He just really didn't get a whole lot of time to learn the playbook and to practice with the team. But that guy's unbelievable. I mean, I think next year, Etienne will still be there, and of course Dixon will be in his second year there. Look out. That might be the best running back duo in America next year if those two guys are both healthy. That guy's unbelievable. Clemson started getting good in 2013 with Taj Boyd after beating LSU in the Peach Bowl. I was there. I was at that game, sir. It was on New Year's Eve. 4th and 16. That was awesome, too. Unbelievable game. They actually started getting good before that. So I'll argue with you a little bit there. I mean, they started getting good right around 2011. And 2010, 2011 range, they started winning their 10 games a year. They won 10 games or more, and really 11 games or more most of the years for the past 9 years, so or 8 years anyway, since 2010. Good afternoon, Tiger Nation. How you doing, sir? Good afternoon. I'm sure if you're here, you're amazing and fantastic. Otherwise, you would not be here. And plus, I already know you're amazing and fantastic because you're Tiger Nation, and you're one of my favorite people in the world. So anyway, I also want to talk a little bit about, there's a lot I want to talk about, really. We've already delved into the college game a little bit so far. I also want to talk about what's in the news right now as far as the NFL goes. And I'm not going to get into a lot of the games this week. I'll do that maybe on Thursday's show. But this Josh Gordon thing, because it's really what's dominating the news cycle and what's dominating Twitter and Facebook or whatever social media you choose to participate in. This is why Bill Belichick is a genius. This is why Bill Belichick is built a dynasty, while all these other teams are good for 2 or 3, sometimes even 4 years, and then they get in trouble with the salary cap. You're seeing that going on with Seattle right now. I mean, when Russell Wilson was on his rookie contract as a sixth-round draft pick, making less than $1 million a year, they were great, weren't they? They were giving all that money to all those defensive players. Well, as soon as they had to give Russell Wilson his, max money, they started getting rid of all their high-paid defensive players. Now Seattle is a shell of its old self, and they're basically one of the probably worst 5 football teams in all of the NFL, maybe even worse than that. Bill Belichick finds a way not to do that. How does he do that? He goes and gets elite talent for pennies on the dollar with little to no risk. They say, well, Josh Gordon's only played 5 games in 5 years or 10 games in 5 years or whatever it is. He may not even show up for the first practice for all we know. Well, they only traded the 5th-round draft pick for him. Well, Tom Brady was a 6th-round draft pick. Yeah, well, guess what? 95% of the 5th-round draft picks don't last more than a year in the NFL. So they really didn't lose anything. His salary is less than $1 million a year. So, I mean, listen, Antonio Brown's getting paid almost $20 million a year. Sammy Watkins, who's, let's face it, in the NFL as far as production, an average receiver at best is getting paid $14 million a year. This guy's better than or as good as any receiver in the NFL when he's on the field. So the worst case scenario is the guy doesn't show up. The guy goes out and gets high one night, flunks a drug test. They cut him. They lose a fifth round draft pick. Big deal. The upside is, even if he only plays 6 games for him this year at $1 million for the entire season, that could be the difference between them winning another Super Bowl and not, because they don't really have a big-time receiver right now. I mean, it's unbelievable what Bill Belichick does. Hell, if I was the Cowboys, any of these teams that don't have receivers, even the Panthers, as a Panther fan, I'd have offered more than a 5th-round draft pick. I'd have offered a 4th or 3rd-round draft pick to get him, if that's what got him in there. Still worth it. Dondre Crawford says, Clemson has always been good. They just weren't as good as Florida State when it came in conference. Now, Clemson was, listen, there was a 20-year period there where Clemson was just an 8-win team. The Tommy Bowden years were just complete, mediocrity. Yeah, his big claim to fame was he's been there 10 years and he's went to 10 straight bowl games. Yeah, well, good for you. That sounds a lot like South Carolina fans, right? We've been to 10 straight bowl games and he has a winning bowl record. Well, good. If your ceiling is the Capital One Bowl, if that's what you're happy with every year, good for you. Good luck. Have fun with that. Not me, not as a Clemson fan. I mean, when I grew up, when I was a kid, Clemson was a national powerhouse. Now I was only a kid. It wasn't like I, was going to every game and watching every single game when I was 5 years old and pulling for them, as hard as I could. But even as a kid, I remember them being a powerhouse. Vaguely, but I remember it. So all those years that they were mediocre was pretty painful. They had a lot of talent, and but they just couldn't get over that hump. That difference between the 9-win team and the 11-win team is massive in college football. So, starting around 2010, that all changed, and you see where we are now. Nona Bees, good afternoon, says, so which one of your trash teams is coming in second to Bama? See you later, NBA Nate. He says he's got to go. Hey, it's the Outback Bowl. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's right. They should rename the Outback Bowl the Gamecock Bowl, because that's pretty much the same bowl they go to every single year. Yeah, Patrick Mahomes looks unbelievable. Yeah, I agree. Clemson was not always good. There was, like I said, there was a pretty big period of time there where they were slightly above average some years and below average others. Lamar Stevens, good afternoon, sir. He says Sammy Watkins, Odell Beckham, DeAndre Hopkins, and Jarvis Landry in the same game. If a team I could draft that game, that's what he said. Yeah, that would be pretty awesome. I got Sammy Watkins on my draft, my fantasy draft league with the Sports Fury League, and I smoked. Where's UCF Jaguar at? He's the defending champion. I smoked him this week. Smoked him. Matter of fact, I scored more points than anybody in the whole league this week. Sammy Watkins had a pretty good day. Clemson fan says, is this the most excited you've been for Clemson basketball? Yeah. So has that, I was reading yesterday about that 5-star recruit, the number one player out of the state of South Carolina. He was choosing between Duke and Clemson. He hasn't made his choice yet. He said he's already made his mind up, but he hadn't announced it. That would be huge. I mean, obviously Clemson getting to the Sweet 16 last year was big. I'm not a huge basketball fan. I'm not going to pretend to be, okay? I mean, I obviously do follow Clemson basketball. The problem with Clemson basketball is it's been average at best for the vast majority of my life, if not all of it. So, yeah, if Clemson's perennially making the NCAA tournament and getting up in the, 32 and Sweet 16 and Elite 8, even the Final Four or something, I'll definitely pay a lot more closer attention to it and get more excited about it. But I'm just not I'm not sold on it until I see it. Noah says, why are you a Clemson fan and only talk about the SEC? I don't know how long you've been watching the Pigskin Pete YouTube channel, but to say that I only talk about the SEC is completely false and ridiculous. So that's not true at all. Clemson beats A&M by 2 and Bama is a 27-point favorite. Clemson has no shot at the title this year. Okay, so the fact that Clemson lost to Pitt, like 4 weeks before they went out and beat Alabama and won a national title, doesn't mean anything to you? You can't say, oh, we beat this team by 25 more points than you, and then so we win. Listen, you still got to play the games, people. I know everyone, and I agree that Alabama looks unstoppable right now, and they may very well be, but everyone's just handing Alabama the national title trophy. Listen, they could go 14-0 into the national title game. They only got to lose one game to not win the national title, period. So, if you're an Alabama fan, good for you. You got a great team. You're blowing out people that are inferior to you right now. But don't be, signing your ticket to the National Championship Day parade quite yet. But there's still a lot of football to be played. And believe me, anybody's unbeatable. I promise you. Paul Jameson says, Pete, you like my Buckeyes comeback against TCU? Yeah, that was a good comeback. Of course, I thought Ohio State should have won that game anyway. So the fact that Ohio State had to come back to beat them was a little bit of a shock to me. But listen, I think TCU is a pretty good team. So, I mean, that's a good win for Ohio State, no doubt. LSU will beat Bama. And if not LSU, then Auburn. Happens every year. LSU beats Auburn, loses to Alabama. Auburn beats Alabama. It doesn't happen every year like that. Just because something happens 2 years in a row doesn't mean it happens every year. Ohio State's defense scored 14 points, but the defense need to improve a lot if we're going to be able to hang with the guys. And Bama, yeah. Now, again, TCU is one of these Big 12 teams that can put up a lot of points. We saw that last year, right, with Georgia and Oklahoma. Before that game, of course, I picked Georgia to win in a close game, which is exactly what happened. But I said over and over again, all the Georgia fans were on here telling me that the Oklahoma hasn't played anybody with an SEC defense. They're not going to be able to score that many points on Georgia, blah, 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 blah. And meanwhile, they scored like 50 points on them, right? 46, whatever it was. My point is, some of these high-scoring offenses in the Big 12 can put up big points on anybody's defense, but if you can match them in points, which is normally what you have to do, which is what Ohio State did with TCU, is you've got to go blow for blow on offense with them. They're going to get theirs. Only scored that on Georgia because they had a Heisman quarterback. Okay, well, they might have a Heisman quarterback again this year. He's number one in the Heisman list right now, or most lists. Him and Tua. Kyler Murray, anyway, is who I'm talking about. Sooner Ace, 2 of those scores were pick sixes. We had 6 turnovers on the day. Yeah, so people call the off season and the weeks leading up to the football season, they call that talking season, where every fan base comes out and makes their point why their team's going to win the national title and blah blah blah. It really doesn't even stop it this far into the football season. You see 2 or 3 games, right, of your team play, and all of a sudden that's who you think they are. Believe me, it's not who your team is. Even if your team is terrible, even if you're Florida State right now, right? Or even if you're whoever, I don't know, Michigan State. Michigan State is probably the biggest disappointment in the Big Ten, I would say, so far. Right now does not define what's going to happen at the end of the year. Teams improve throughout the year. Some teams get worse throughout the year. My point is, who you are now is not necessarily who you're going to be at the end of the year. So anybody who thinks that Alabama is just going to blow everybody out by 40 points, and that Wisconsin's terrible because they lost to BYU, or Miami sucks because they lost to LSU week 1. No, just pump your brakes a little bit. Football does not work that way. It never has. There will be teams that come out of nowhere and make a run at the end of the year, and there'll be teams that are sitting in the top 5 right now who are just going to completely fall off the map and lose 2 or 3 games that they shouldn't lose. So we'll see what happens. Although I think Florida State's going to be terrible all year. I don't see that thing turning around. Holy crap, they are so bad that winning 1 game or 2 games at this point would be good for them. I mean, they're just so bad. What you think about Auburn since the loss? Says D. Tanksley. I still think that Auburn's a very good team. That's not an indictment on Auburn. It's actually quite surprising to me that LSU is that good. And the funny thing is, I haven't seen a single LSU fan on my channel. I've done multiple Ed Orgeron videos. We're going to run the ball. We're going to pass the ball. We're going to play LSU defense. We're going to recruit inside the state. This is Louisiana. We're the only university inside the entire state. Blah, 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 blah. I've done multiple videos with Ed Orgeron making fun of him, and I haven't seen a single LSU fan. Until week 1 when they beat Miami, all of a sudden now there's 5 million LSU fans on my channel telling me they knew this whole time that they were going to be great, right? Meanwhile, nobody in the entire country, including the so-called experts on ESPN and radio, thought that LSU was going to be worth the crap. But somehow I'm the idiot, and they were right the whole time. It's easy to say you're right after you win, isn't it? I didn't see any of you on here saying that you were going to beat everybody under the sun until you've won a couple games. I got news for you. Like I said before, if you're an LSU fan, great wins. You're much better than I thought you were going to be. You've got a pretty good quarterback in Joe Burrow, even though he could get better. You still got to play Georgia, Alabama. I was going to say Florida, but Florida's not very good right now, are they? My point is, calm down. Just because you beat Auburn at home and beat what I consider to be a pretty mediocre Miami team at this point doesn't mean you're going to win the West and go to the playoff and win a national title. Just calm down. Now, maybe you will. I don't know. Maybe the whole country will look like idiots, and Ed Orgeron is the next Nick Saban, right? LSU has the best resume in the country right now. Based on preseason rankings, you do. Preseason rankings really don't mean anything. I will say the Auburn win was a good win. I'm not going to take that away from you. See you later, Paul Jameson. Have a good day, sir. How did Mitch go in front of Watson and Mahomes? Because I'll tell you how Mitchell Trubisky got drafted ahead of Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes. It's simple. Because of who the head coach was at the time, John Fox. John Fox is the biggest disappointment in all of NFL coaching history. Trust me, I'm a Panther fan, I know. Oh, well, yes, we lost to LSU 3 years now and still was the race at the end of the year. D. Tanksley. Yes, I agree. D. Tanksley must be an Auburn fan. Everyone before LSU versus Miami. Miami's going to kill LSU. After the blowout, Miami's overrated. I don't know if Miami is... Well, you must not, again, you must have been new to my channel since that game has started, because I spent the entire offseason saying that Miami was a great team minus a quarterback, and if they didn't fix that quarterback situation, they weren't going to win anything. And that's proving to be true so far. Now, they can go beat up on Nobody State and Who Gives a Crap University, but when they play, major Power 5 programs like LSU or even Clemson, if they end up making it to the ACC championship, or even some of the better teams in the ACC that they have to play, Virginia Tech, their defenses are strong enough to expose their lack of quarterback play. So, yes, great win by LSU. I still think that Miami has a great defense. So that's a credit to LSU's offense. Something that LSU hasn't had since the first Obama administration is an offense, and they actually show some signs of having that now. So good for you. Great. But, again, if you're Miami, if you can't score points, then it doesn't matter how good your defense is. Will Eubanks, good afternoon, sir. Welcome to the stream. I'm sure if you're here, you're amazing and fantastic. Otherwise, you would not be here. He says he will effing die if Tennessee loses to Florida. Hold on, I gotta read what he said. It came off the screen. He says he will effing die if Tennessee loses to Florida. We haven't won an SEC game in over a year. 7 p.m. night game in Knoxville. The place is going to be lit in front of over 100,000 people. Now, I will say this. That might be one of the most exciting games that nobody cares about outside of those two states, right? I mean, Tennessee's been terrible for 10 years, and I feel bad for Tennessee fans. I really do. And Florida has, the past couple years at least, have been pretty bad, right? I mean, they were really bad last year, and then they're off to a pretty rough start this year. But despite that, despite those two teams not being very good recently, it's still a very intriguing game to watch. It's one I will record if I can't watch it. I don't know why. I guess it's to see which team is really worse than the other, not which one's better. I'm more interested to see which one's really bad than which one's really good. Dondre Crawford says Miami is overrated. He said that all last year and this year. Just a bad quarterback, yeah. Will Eubanks says this is the ultimate must-win game in his life. Will Eubanks, are you a Florida fan or a Tennessee fan? I think you're a Florida fan, if I remember correctly. Lee Smith says Tennessee and Florida will be a terrible game, but he wants to watch it and see who to laugh at afterwards. Exactly. Believe me, it'll give me some material for the YouTube channel, and no doubt about that. Everyone has a bad quarterback against an LSU defense. Nola, listen, I get you're a homer, and I know you love your team. Go Tigers! But don't make crazy statements like that. You say that now. Wait till you face Tua, and then see if you say the same thing. When Tua puts up 50 on you, we'll see if you're still singing the same tune. What's up, TTD Tyler? How you doing, sir? Good afternoon. Oh, Will Eubanks is a Tennessee fan. Sorry. Nola says he's not an LSU fan. With a name like Nola, isn't NOLA like short for New Orleans? Like, I know that LSU is not New Orleans, but it's still in the state of Louisiana. You would figure. I mean, I'm not the smartest, the sharpest tool in the shed, but NOLA, and you're talking a lot about LSU. You know, I made the connection there. So. Tua isn't scoring 25 on LSU. I'd be willing to bet just about everything I own right now that Tua will score more than 25 on LSU. Now, I'd be willing to bet just about anything I own that Alabama's going to score more than 25 points on every single team they play. And the only way you're going to beat them is to outscore them. Brian Fennell says UGA is going to hang 50 on LSU. Well, I'll tell you this. If Georgia doesn't figure out how to throw that ball, they're not going to do that. I mean, listen, yeah, you scored what? What was the South Carolina score? 40-something to 17? And South Carolina's terrible. I mean, so LSU is better than South Carolina by a long shot. So if you didn't score 50 on South Carolina, you're not scoring 50 on LSU unless somebody teaches that quarterback how to actually throw the football, because it seems like they run 89% of the time, from what I can tell. Gus made bad coaching decisions Saturday. Unfortunately, D. Tankersley, or Tanksley, Gus Malzahn's known for making bad coaching decisions. I guess. I mean, listen, he had 1 foot out the door last year, and then he beat Alabama and Georgia at the end of the year, and so they gave this joker a raise and an extension. Which, you know what? I'm not saying Gus Malzahn's a bad coach. Obviously, his record and it says different, but I have a feeling if you're an Auburn fan, I mean, not only are your hopes to win a national title at some point with you're paying a guy that amount of money, but at least to win the SEC, right? I mean, when's the last time Auburn won the SEC? I know it wasn't like a million years ago or anything, but it's been 5 or 6 years at least, right? And that's got to be the standard at Auburn, I would imagine. Comic Dude 45, good afternoon, sir. He says, which fan bases are on fire after this week? On fire in a good way or on fire in a bad way? That's what I want to know before I answer that question. There'll be some on both sides of the spectrum, I promise you. Sooner A says, Georgia will be all right with throwing. How do we know that? I mean, how do you know until you see it? I'm not doubting that they can't throw the ball. I'm just not seeing them do it. Am I crazy? Is there any Georgia fans on here that tell me? Somebody give me the ratio from passing to running for the Georgia offense this year. I bet you it's somewhere around 70-30, 80-20. I mean, they're barely throwing the ball. I can tell you, I've watched at least 2 of their 3 games, and I haven't seen them throw the ball very much at all. Is Auburn an overrated team in your opinion? No, I don't. I think Auburn's a top 10 team. I think that Auburn has probably the 2nd or 3rd best defensive front in the country. I'd say Clemson. I guess you could put Alabama and Ohio State. Those 3 teams probably have the best defensive fronts in the country. I put Auburn right there with them. You can flip-flop them, swap them, whichever way you want. It's an NFL defensive line front 7 that Auburn has, and Auburn has a group of really good receivers and the best quarterback that they've had probably in the past decade, right? So, yeah, Auburn's for real. They're a legitimate top 10 team. No, that's all I can say about that. I don't think they're overrated. No. Brian Fennell says we haven't had to. You haven't had to what? You haven't had to throw the ball? Well, maybe you didn't. Maybe you don't have to. you're going to have to at some point. I mean, you're going to have to when you play, if and when you play Alabama at any point, whether that's in the SEC championship game or in another playoff or national championship type scenario, if that's your goal. You're not beating Alabama by running the ball. Nobody in the country is going to beat Alabama by just running the ball, period. You're going to have to outscore them. And I don't even think that's some sort of revelation that I'm giving to the country. I think that's just the way it is. Anybody with a pair of eyeballs can tell you that you're going to have to throw the ball to beat Alabama. Nola says Alabama has a weak secondary. All the more reason to throw the ball then. I don't know about weak. I don't know if there's really a weakness on that team. It might be the weakest part of their team. Alabama has never scored 25 on LSU. I was probably the same dude saying, let me see what this guy says. Love this guy. I was probably the same guy saying LSU would lose to Miami and Auburn, and now you're the dude saying they are both overrated. Oh, at College Football Maniac. So he wasn't talking to me. All right, good, because I didn't say that. Yes, Lee Smith says they need to go downfield against better defenses to loosen the defensive box up. Somebody also, I can't go that far back, somebody mentioned a couple of minutes ago, said that Miami is still a shoo-in to go to the ACC championship game, and I don't know about that. Now, I'm not saying they're not going to. It's way too early to say. Let's face it, Miami's only played one good team this year, and that was LSU, and that was the first game of the year. So that's not necessarily who Miami is. I'm not saying Miami can't get better or Miami's not better than what they showed in that game. But I can tell you this, there's two teams at least in their division that can give them a run for their money. Virginia Tech is definitely one of them. Virginia Tech we don't know a whole lot about. Yeah, they beat up on FSU, Florida State, but that's not hard to do. So we don't know. We don't know about Virginia Tech at all, really. They haven't played anybody either other than Florida State, and Florida State's terrible. So that's just you can't get any kind of judgment from that game. But I will tell you this, Duke, everybody can laugh when somebody says something about Duke football. Laugh all you want to. But if you follow ACC football the way I do, I'm telling you, mark my words, Duke has a very good chance at beating both Virginia Tech and Miami, or both. They had a legitimate shot at doing that. They're not a bad team. So Duke could potentially win that division, as crazy as that sounds. Yeah, Go 1330 says Duke and Boston College and Syracuse are all 3-0. Now, the only pretender out of those, I'd say that Syracuse has a ceiling. I mean, Syracuse has a very high-powered offense. I will give them that much. They have probably the second or third best quarterback in the entire ACC. That kid's good. But the rest of the team is, I mean, they can score enough points to beat some people they probably shouldn't beat, but they're not going to go out and win 9 or 10 games and win even the division. Of course, they're in Clemson's division. That's not going to happen. But you get my point. Now, Boston College is a different story. Boston College has a Heisman top finalist as a running back. This guy averages 200 yards a game in his first 16 games as a college player. You know, true sophomore. I mean, he's an NFL first-round draft pick running back. The guy's a beast and a monster. And they have a pretty good defense. And for the first time since I can remember, Boston College has a quarterback that can actually throw the ball down the field. So you put all the same division as Clemson, and the only way to even get to the ACC championship game, they'd have to beat Clemson, and Clemson would have to lose another game other than them, which I just don't see happening. So, but yes, I agree. Some of these teams that are normally middle to lower tier ACC teams that nobody thinks about, like Duke and Boston College, they're better this year than the majority of the country that doesn't ever watch anything outside of their own conference thinks. TTD Tyler says, Pixie and Pete, I was so upset we lost against LSU. We still should have won that game. So many mistakes. Auburn just can't finish. I have us winning every game from now on. but iffy about Georgia and Bama. Here's my biggest. Wait, I was thinking you were a Miami fan. You're saying Georgia and Bama. You're an Auburn fan. Well, if I were an Auburn fan, I definitely would be iffy about Bama and Georgia. So I give you that. Yes, Auburn's got a tough schedule. LSU has a tough schedule. I'll give you guys that. It's hard to win all those games, for sure. Creole Tatted, good afternoon, sir. Welcome to the stream. I'm sure if teams in the country right now, you can make a case for saying that for. So, I don't know. They do have a good defense, though. Yes. BS Auburn is top 3. I don't know who you're arguing with there. But top 3 what? Top 3 defense, I agree. Top 3 defensive front, anyway. Yes. Wrong on Purpose, a.k.a. the artist formerly known as Drake Luke. Good afternoon, sir. Our resident Oregon fan and Oregon video maker. Anybody who doesn't know who Wrong on Purpose is, I don't call him Wrong on Purpose. I call him the artist formerly known as Drake Luke. He's probably too young to really understand what that reference means, but anybody that's born prior to 1990, I guess I'd say, knows what the artist formerly known as means. And I always say he's changed his name so many times that I think he's going to change his name to a symbol next, just like Prince did. But anyway, the artist formerly known as Drake Luke, I announced at the beginning of the show that the game I will be streaming this weekend is the Oregon-Stanford game. So I hope you come and check in with me during that game. I could probably use your input, to be honest with you, what I know about Oregon. And listen, a lot of the Pac-12 teams, let's be honest here, could fit into a thimble. I mean, I know the big names, players, but I'm not very into the Pac-12 rosters the way I am with the Big Ten and the SEC and the ACC and even the Big 12. So come check in with me. I'm sure you'll be excited about that game. I'm excited about streaming for it. Nola, I just think it's too early to say who's got the best defense in the country. That's all I'm saying. They very well may have the best defense in the country. I'm not going to argue with you. I mean, you played 2 top 10 teams because that's who was on your schedule this year. I mean, just because you play 2 top 10 teams and somebody else hasn't, doesn't mean the other team doesn't have a better defense. They just haven't been able to prove it yet because they haven't played in 2 top 10 teams. But listen, that's all about semantics. And my feelings about the AP poll and preseason rankings nullify that whole argument about this we beat a ranked team, an unranked team. Somebody told me a couple weeks ago, how do you feel about Clemson not playing any ranked teams this year? Well, it turns out probably by the end of the year we may play 4 or 5 ranked teams because the polls change every week. What you're ranked before they even play a football game means absolutely nothing. Ask Florida State. And ask Texas A&M. Texas A&M's now ranked. They weren't ranked when we played them, but by the end of the year, they may be a top 15 team. So it is what it is. And Duke will probably be ranked. Wake Forest might even be ranked. If they keep winning or playing good. Boston College will be ranked. So, yeah, Duke will be ranked, and we're playing them this year too. I mean, will they be top 5 teams we play? No, but they'll be ranked. But it doesn't really matter. Only thing that matters is where you finish, not where you start. Good afternoon, George. Says he lost the sound. I don't know why. Everything's good on my end. That's why I've got these stupid headphones on, so I can hear what the microphone's picking up, and if my sound does go out, or if there's some kind of background noise going on that's messing, interfering, then I'll know about it. Pete, how do you feel about a team moving down after a win? Again, Brian Fennell, I'm assuming you're talking about moving down the AP poll. I mean, it'd be a different story. First of all, there's a lot that goes into that. I mean, so you could move down after a win based on if you're close with another couple of teams that had better wins, then you may fall behind them. You may not move down. They just may move up ahead of you, which would push you down in theory, right? So, and I mean, that's one way to look at it. So I don't really care. But again, with the AP poll, put it this way. As a Clemson fan, if Clemson was ranked number 20 in the country right now, 20, where are they ranked at right now? I don't even know. 2 or 3? 3, I think. I wouldn't even care. I don't care. Because I tell you why. If you're Clemson, whether you're ranked 3 right now or 20 right now, the only way you're going to make it in the college football playoff is if you win the ACC with nothing less than 1 loss. If Clemson's an 11-1 ACC champion, they're going to get in the playoff. It doesn't matter if they start the season number 30 or number 1. It just is meaningless. It's completely meaningless for your team, for my team, for anybody's team. Comic Dude 45 says, Pete, I agree, but if my team doesn't improve fast, we'll finish the way we started, slow, sluggish, and terrible. Yeah, Billy Dawson's just echoing what I've said. The only thing that matters is the playoff poll, which starts after week 8. A lot of people complained about Auburn not moving up out of the top 10 spot, and we're 2-1 over undefeated teams. Yeah, again, I still think the Auburn's a top 10 team, despite the fact that they lost. So I would agree. I mean. But does it really matter if they're 12 or 9 right now? It doesn't. Listen, Auburn controls its own destiny. No matter what their ranking is, they still got to, Auburn has to win out. Because if they don't even win their division, then that's it for them. So they need to beat Alabama, number 1, and that's going to be a tall task. That's the only game you should really be worried about right now. Because if you don't win that game, it doesn't matter. Too bad there is no good defense in Oklahoma. I'll tell you what. Compared to other great defenses, no. Oklahoma's got a better defense this year than they did last year, and probably the previous 5 years before that. So they're moving in the right direction. Now, they could fall apart at any moment. I wouldn't be shocked. Their defense, I mean. I'm not a big believer in their defensive coordinator. TTD Tyler says, yes, rankings mean nothing. 2010 Auburn wasn't even ranked, and they won the national title. Exactly. Yes, that doesn't mean good. They're just better. I got you. All right, guys. Listen, it's been an hour. I got to go. It was great. It feels like it's only been 10 minutes, and that's because you guys are so much fun to chat with. You love to get me going, and I love to get going for you. So I'll see you guys again on Thursday at 4 p.m. If you're new here, hit the like and subscribe button. I upload meaningless and pointless college football videos throughout the week. I also do a live stream on Tuesday and Thursdays at 4 p.m. for 1 hour, and I do one live play-by-play and reaction for an entire football game, primetime football game, every single Saturday. This week it will be Stanford and Oregon at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, so stop in for that. And I guess I'll see you on Thursday to talk more crap about your football team. And I hope you join me. Have a great day. Big C and Pete, checking out.